BRAVO Delta Show. Brought to you by
Jagadamba Ultra Premium OPC Cement.
Sponsored by
Gold Star G10 for the fast life.
BRAVO Pay, wallet our mobile.
Gorkha Tweed, the Himalayan answer to the Highland heritage.
दर्शकवृन्द नमस्ते। नेपाली कामदारहरूको महत्त्वपूर्ण गन्तव्य मध्येको एक कतार यसै पनि हाम्रो असल मित्र हो। नेपालीहरूलाई रोजगारी प्रदान गरेर कतारले नेपाललाई लामै समयदेखि अमूल्य गुण लगाइरहेकै छ। दुई देशको सम्बन्ध थप मजबुत हुने गरी फेरि एउटा खुसीको खबर सार्वजनिक भएको छ। कतारको राज परिवारकी एकजना सदस्य आसमा अल थानीले विश्वको सर्वोच्च शिखर सगरमाथाको सफल आरोहण गरेको समाचारले दुवै देशका शुभचिन्तकहरूलाई पुलकित पारेको छ। शाही परिवारकी सदस्य थानीको सगरमाथा आरोहणले हाम्रो देशको पर्यटन प्रवर्धनमा महत्त्वपूर्ण भूमिका खेल्ने अपेक्षा पनि रहेको छ। नेपालले यो घटनालाई आफ्नो पर्यटन प्रवर्धनको महत्त्वपूर्ण अवसर बनाउन सक्छ। आज हामीले कार्यक्रममा तिनै सगरमाथाको सफल आरोहण गरेकी कतारी राज परिवारकी सदस्य आसमा अल थानीलाई निम्त्याएका छौं। Shekha Asmi, welcome to the BRAVO Delta Show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure and honor to be on the show.
First of all, congratulations on your summit to the Everest. May I begin with the cultural difference that the two countries have? You were born and brought up in Qatar.
Yes.
And when was the first time you learned about the country called Nepal and which has mountains for you to climb?
I've always been a person who loved sports in general. I'm the only daughter between three boys, so I'm the only girl. And physical activity for me was something that was a way that I could express myself with my brothers who's stronger, who's faster, who can jump higher and all of that. At a very young age, at 13, I wrote a bucket list for myself. And I was inspired by, I wrote little things that I wanted to achieve for myself, but part of that was mountaineering. Mm-hmm. We've been learning about mountains in the Himalayas since middle school and learned about Nepal at such a young age. And in that bucket list, I had climb a mountain, and it was lost. Mm-hmm. And I found that list in 2013, and I started to cross out things that I've already achieved for my little self, and the mountain was there. And since 2013, I started to do a lot of research about mountaineering and the different mountains and the different terminologies, be it explorers, Grand Slam, what are adventures and stuff like that. And my mountaineering adventure started from there.
As a human being, is just a bucket list enough to achieve mountains?
No. A bucket list could be a start. It was a dream that I wanted to have. At a young age, there are a lot of things that as a person you would not think are possible. It could be simple things, be it drive a car or travel the world or see the aurora skies, things that I wanted to achieve. But to climb mountains, many different heights, many different technicalities and difficulties. Mm-hmm. But a mountain like Everest or a mountain like the 8,000ers in the Himalayas, there's a lot of preparation that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm. So for your preparation, how did it start? Did it start in Qatar itself?
Yes. So when I first started, so my first mountain was Kilimanjaro. Mm-hmm. And we climbed Kilimanjaro with my cousin, Bhusan Dahal, who was the first Qatari to ever summit mm-hmm. Everest. And Muhammad put a group together of Qataris to be the first Qataris to go climb Mount Kilimanjaro. But it was also to raise funds to build schools on the Gaza Strip in Palestine. Now, when it's your first time to climb a mountain, you go into the physical training, be it in the gym, be it running, be it all the endurance training. But as you continue to climb mountains and you start to experience higher altitude, you start to realize what is needed mentally and physically to be able to prepare. And everybody's different. Everybody's genetics are different when it comes to mountaineering. For me, the more I climb, the more experience I become, the more I would say emotionally and mentally prepared I become for mountains. And the more I understand what my body needs to be able to adapt and to be stronger as I climb.
And honestly speaking, were you genetically cut for mountains, do you think?
Yeah, actually, I was in one of our medical corporations in Qatar, and they were telling me about altitude. So I've never felt altitude sickness before. So I feel like my body does adapt well to a higher altitude, or the way that I'm climbing with my guide actually works well for me. But when I climbed Everest last year, so last year I had the experience of actually climbing Everest until Camp 4, but our expedition got cancelled. My training and my technique was completely different. And after that, I continued to climb more 8,000 meters and understood that what my body needed from a physical perspective to actually be even stronger. But I kind of feel there is some sort of, I'm lucky enough to not be able to have all the severe altitude sickness that a lot of people would face on the mountains.
Have you done all the 8,000?
Currently, I've done 5 8,000ers. I climbed Manasulu last year without oxygen, and climbed Dhaulagiri as well. And this year I've climbed Kanchenjunga, Everest, and Lhotse.
You did 3 this season.
3 this season in less than a month.
Is it as easy as it sounds?
Not at all. I'm still in denial with what happened. It's mentally and physically very, very tiring. Mountaineering needs, I would say, mental and physical endurance as well. Because you're in uncomfortable situations. It's very cold. You're not eating the food that you're used to eating. You become family with the people that are with you climbing because you're all experiencing the same thing, but you start to become homesick. You want to go home. You don't want to pack up and move on every single day. So it's a lot of, but you need to get going. You need to put one foot in front of the other and start going before you even, and not stop. For me, it's always remembering why I'm doing it. It's always remembering how I started and the effort that I put in the past couple of months or before my climbs that keeps me going. But it's not easy.
Is it a good idea to do 3 in one season?
There are many different ways. If your body can handle it, if you've trained the right way for it, yes, it is, because to acclimatize for 1 8,000ers takes a couple of weeks, close to a month. So if once you acclimatize for one, then you can start climbing a mountain, an 8,000 in 2 to 3, 4 days. So it just depends on how you are physically to be able to manage. But it's a good idea because if you are interested, you are excited about climbing, you can do more than one in a season, and you're fully acclimatized. So you don't. Each mountain takes about 50 days, 30 days, 40 days to climb, depending on the mountain. But if you're able to acclimatize for one, you're acclimatized for a lot of them.
As you very well know, we have a new Himalayan mascot for Nepal.
Yeah.
Called Nimspurja. You've climbed with him, right?
Yes.
And when he came out with the film, I wanted to challenge him. Why did you make mountaineering so easy with the film?
Yeah.
He showed things. He went to the base camp, pushed the summit, came back, and they just count mountains.
Yeah.
And when I talk to you now, I don't think it was an exaggeration. So there is a formula.
Yes.
If you acclimatize to a certain altitude, in one season, you're acclimatized for several expeditions if your body permits, right?
Yes.
Your mind permits.
Yes. So yeah, that's true. You need the right people to have around. To have around you, you need the right logistics, the right team, and it depends on. It honestly depends. Everybody has a personal goal. Some people are climbing mountains to discover themselves. Some people are climbing to achieve a specific goal. But once you set for it and you plan the right way, there are many different ways, and with experience, you start to know how your body reacts. So, Nirmal or Nims, he's physically very, very strong. So
Yes.
he can climb mountains easily, and the body adapts. But everybody is also very different. So everybody just
Have you watched this film?
Yes, of course.
Do you think the film has actually generated interest in a lot of non-mountaineering youngsters to get into the field of mountaineering?
Yes, I feel the film is not only about mountaineering, but it's also a message of hope, a message of a dream can actually happen if you really
Possibility.
the possibilities in this world. There's many things that people can do, and I feel like it has empowered a lot of the youngsters, a lot of the youth to be able to go for their dreams and go for what they want to do. Be it mountaineering or not, we all have our mountains, we all have our Everests, and our Everests are all different.
True.
But I feel like with what Nims has shown, where some people told him it was impossible, people told him that it's like swimming to the moon. It's not something that is doable. He was able to challenge that, and with the right planning, with the right team, he succeeded, and that shows that this is possible. And in the world today, we need that type of message for the youth and for everyone. To go for their dreams and to really push as much as they can if they really do believe in it and do love what they want, what they do.
We'll talk about Nepal more and the mountains more. But for you, may I ask you, what is Nepal for you? Spiritually.
Spiritually, Nepal is a place where I was able to discover who I am as a person, to discover a lot more about what I can endure and discover a lot more of the beauty in this earth. I remember the first time I came to Nepal, I was here to trek to Everest Base Camp. And again, I came with my cousin. And I've never stopped. And when I'm climbing, I'm always looking down at my feet. And when I'm trekking, I'm also looking down at my feet just to make sure I reach to the second point. But with the Himalayas, with Nepal, I've stopped so many times. I was so humbled by the beauty and the greatness of the mountains. Just passing by, meeting the people, meeting the children. It's a completely different experience. And for me, it gave me hope. It showed me potential, what I can do and what I can achieve. And my life completely changed after that. That's when I said, I've spent maybe in the last year more time in Nepal than I spent in Qatar because of my climbing. And for me, it feels like home.
You talked about people. What do the Nepalese people communicate to you?
I've seen so much generosity, so much love, so much support from people that I've met here in Kathmandu or the team that I've actually climbed with the several mountains. I climb with the same team all the time, so I started to get to know every single person more and more, and they got to know me a lot more. And it's beautiful to see. One of the major things, so when I climbed Lhotse, we were the last people on the mountain, the last people on Everest and Lhotse camps. There's no one else there. It's just us. And the Lhotse couloir was covered in very, very thick snow. So it covered all the ropes. And usually at that time, people would turn around. They say, it's too much work. It's very hard. It's quite dangerous. It's quite a risk. We turn around. And that didn't happen with the team. What I loved and what I saw was that they all basically worked together, the brotherhood that they had with each other, and started to help each other break the route. All of us as a team became one family, breaking the route and stepping in each other's footsteps. So there's one footstep. If you looked at it, you would see one pair of feet. You wouldn't see 10 people climbing. You would see one person climbing, and I love that because in such a situation, when people work together and have the same goal and have the same, I would say, interests and wanting to deliver something in its best way, you deliver greatness, I believe. And I've never seen, and you see it in sports sometimes, and I lived it here in Nepal and Lhotse a couple of days ago.
प्रतिज्ञा मात्र हैन पूरा पनि गर्दछौं हामी जगदम्बा अल्ट्रा प्रिमियम ओपीसी सिमेन्ट यही हो नेपालको अनुभवी ओपीसी सिमेन्ट
I'll either make it or break it, but I'm definitely gonna shake it. A heart of a soldier, my dreams are colossal. I'm a leader, I need a footstep they can follow. Every mile I walk is a story worth telling. Stomp through the concrete, raise hell till it's heaven. I'm the man, I'm a beast, a monster. That's why I came, I saw, I conquered. Maneuver swiftly, I go with the flow. I got gold in my soul. I'm no average Joe, no time to waste. How long is it soon? Zip zap zoom, ready to touch the moon. Closer to greatness, I can feel it in my bones. I keep walking alone. Representing where you're from, Gold Star G10 for the fast life.
प्रतिज्ञा मात्र हैन पूरा पनि गर्दछौं हामी जगदम्बा अल्ट्रा प्रिमियम ओपीसी सिमेन्ट यही हो नेपालको अनुभवी ओपीसी सिमेन्ट
तँलाई म पैसा दिन्छु है।
आमा के गर्नु भएको बच्चालाई त्यसो गर्यो नि बिग्रिन्छ नि बच्चा।
अनि मलाई त्यो फुटबल सुटबल के थाहा, ऊ आफै जान्नेछ किनिहाल्छ भनेर दिएको।
के भयो त आमाले आफ्नै नातिलाई गिफ्ट दिन नहुने?
गिफ्ट त दिनुहुन्छ नि तर पैसै हातमा दिनु भएन भने नि यार।
यस्तो गर्नुस् न त हजुरआमा, प्रभु पे एपबाट पैसा पठाइदिनु, म ड्याडीसँग सल्लाह गरेर अनलाइनबाट किनिहाल्छु नि, हुन्न ड्याडी?
ए प्रभु, मलाई यो एप स्याप भन्ने के थाहा।
यो प्रभु पे चलाउन यति सजिलो छ कि आमाले पनि एकैछिनमा सिकिहाल्नुहुन्छ।
जय होस् प्रभु।
प्रभु पे वालेट अब मोबाइलमा।
जगदम्बा अल्ट्रा प्रिमियम ओपीसी सिमेन्ट यही हो नेपालको अनुभवी ओपीसी सिमेन्ट। As the magical warmth of the highlands is now recreated in the Himalayas, the patterned art comes alive and thrives with a tremendous sense of color and texture. Gorkha tweed, the Himalayan answer to the highland heritage.
When we talk about mountaineering, when we talk about Nepal, the race called the Sherpas
Yes,
cannot be forgotten at all.
not at all. Yeah.
You tell me what it means to you.
I would say the backbone of mountaineering, the support that that we get. Without Sherpas, you're not able to climb the 8,000-meter mountains, and they're very, very strong, very helpful, and very, very supportive. And I'm very grateful for them because, again, like I said, seeing what they do and seeing how hard they work every single day, you can't but appreciate all that hard work. And I'm very grateful for them.
And some say you've done so many mountains, so I'm just a little cheeky about it. Can you do mountains in Nepal without the Sherpas?
Personally, I would say no. I wouldn't speak on behalf of any other person, but personally, I would say no. I feel like every mountain has its people who know the mountain, who know its route, who know it inside out. In Qatar, my brother, for example, would say, "I know the deserts like I know the palm of my hand, where I can walk around with my eyes closed and I can tell you where everything is." And for me, I believe that you trust the people that live in that location, and you follow that route. I personally would say no.
Now, the next important thing is the food.
Yes.
We have certain similarities.
Yes.
We have things a lot different to each other.
Yes.
So, how much can you survive with Nepali food while you're in Nepal?
So with us, our similarity is rice. So we do have the rice and the curries, and so we do have a lot of similarities. For me, I never felt homesick with the food because there's a lot that we share as a culture from the Middle East with Nepal. But as you go higher up, the food changes because it's very difficult to cook. You need to melt water, and that takes time. And the higher you go, the harder it becomes, the longer it takes. So you end up living on dried food that you would put water in, and it would turn into whatever whatever you've chosen. For me, it's noodles, so that always works. But that's when you start to get homesick, the higher you go up. Base camp, I would say the food is amazing. And I've never felt there's a lot of variety of food here in Nepal. And there's a lot of variety from specific cultures, not only Nepali food, but different cultures. So you would never run out of something to eat, I would say.
Whenever I talk to mountaineers, I'm really fascinated by the seasonal community that the base camp becomes.
Yes.
It becomes a community for mountaineers and mountain enthusiasts. But you're divided into different expeditions.
Yes.
How is the camaraderie there? Is the brotherhood, sisterhood alive, or it's very competitive?
I would say there's a lot of competition. In sports in general or in mountaineering, there's a lot of competition. But once you start to get into it, you start to build these friendships. Base camp, you start to build your network of groups, and you start to fall into your specific group or specific friends. You're living with these people for 2 months, eating with them, climbing with them, facing severe conditions with them. Yeah. So you start to build a relationship. But within the mountaineering community, of course, and within all the sporting community, there's always competition. People want to try something different, want to do something different. But I've always had that. I've always had that sense of family whenever I climbed, and I'm grateful for that too.
And you've done so many mountains in Nepal. Is every mountain different to each other, or they're pretty much the same?
Oh no, every mountain is different. Every mountain has its characteristics, has its personality. Every mountain's base camp is quite different. And everyone has its own little way of climbing. There are many specific things, but each mountain, yes, has its own personality, has its own characteristic, has its own weather patterns. And you start to build different relationships with each mountain, I would say.
Briefly speaking, how was Kanchenjunga?
So Kanchenjunga was the hardest mountain for me. Because I climbed it twice. The first time, unfortunately, because the route was being opened, they weren't able to locate the summit. So the first climb, we went all the way up, but it wasn't the true summit. So we had to turn around. And then a couple of days later, we went back up again. But we summited Kanchenjunga within 2 days. So we went from base camp to camp 2 to the summit. Now, Kanchenjunga is out of this world. When you start climbing, it's as if you're on the moon or you're in space or somewhere completely different because of how the environment looks, the seracs, the crevasses, just completely different. It's so beautiful. But it has a very, very long summit push, even from Camp 4. But climbing 1,000 and then not being able to, and then doing it again within the next couple of days, it's quite difficult because you know what you're going to go through. And you just have to push and go through it.
And you've talked about not getting to the summit
Yes.
at attempts.
Yes.
How does it feel as a mountaineer if you climb that high up and cannot achieve the summit that particular time?
In the beginning, it's very disappointing. I had two experiences. So Everest last year, we were at Camp 4 and we had to turn around due to COVID and due to weather conditions. And then this year, I had Kanchenjunga, where you actually reach the top and then you're like, okay, this is not the summit. It's disappointing in the beginning, but then you realize things always happen for a reason, and you start to understand why. But I think each person is different. For me, I now know myself and know I believe that everything happens for a reason. I believe that if something doesn't happen, there's always a reason for that, and just to be able to accept it and to move on and try to achieve what we want to achieve. I'm happy that I was able to come back and climb into this season as well and actually reach the summit. It's such a beautiful summit and such a hard one to reach, but I was happy that I was able to do it.
Let's compare the three, Kanchenjunga, Lhotse, and the Everest. You did it in one season. If you compare it in terms of difficulty, number one is Kanchenjunga.
For me, it's Kanchenjunga.
And the second?
Everest. Lhotse, for us, the season was quite hard as well because, again, like I said, the ropes were buried under the snow, so it was a full trailblaze. We were quite fast, but when we reached the end of where the rope is buried, then it took us longer than it was supposed to be, and we just summited Everest yesterday. So my body was completely tired, and I was just physically exhausted, basically, but just I had to keep on going and to reach to the top. But yeah, Kanchenjunga was the hardest one.
You've even done Amadablam, right?
I've done Amadablam and Manaslu and Dhaulagiri.
And how is Amadablam as a mountain to climb? It looks fantastic as a picture.
Amadablam is a beautiful mountain. It's an adventurous one, I would say. It's quite a technical one too. It has a beautiful base camp. But to me, it wasn't as difficult. I was fully acclimatized because I finished Dhaulagiri and Manaslu right before. So I pushed through Amadablam in one push. I didn't do any didn't have to do any rotations. But I really enjoyed it.
Now, mountaineering with an expedition, with all the amenities, but the sound of the air called oxygen. Everybody says you gasp for breath. So you've done Manaslu with no oxygen.
With no oxygen.
Why is it so important to do it without oxygen?
I honestly wanted to see how far my body can go. When we were climbing, I've never experienced the no oxygen. I've trained for it, but I wanted to see how far can my body go. And when you start making decisions about no oxygen, again, you go into that life and death situation, right? Ego starts to play a role in your decision making. For me, I kept it very quiet, very personal. So it was only me and my guide, Nims, who knew that I'm doing it without oxygen, because I wanted to make sure that if I decide to go on oxygen, I go on oxygen without having to go through that decision of, no, I'm canceling just because I decided to do it without oxygen. With the mountains, you have to be very humble because if you're not humble, it will teach you a very, very big lesson. But thankfully, my body was able to manage. It's for me, it's all about patience and pacing, I would say, not going too fast, and just listening to your body as you climb.
And is there a point where a mountaineer feels, no, I'm pushing it. I shouldn't do it.
Yes.
Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, that I'm pushing it. Yes. So in Kanchenjunga, I got very sick. I had a very bad cough. My ribs were hurting. So as I was climbing, so the first time I went, I was able to go until Camp 4 without oxygen before I started to go into. So I wanted to acclimatize for Everest, and it was a good opportunity. So rather than do a rotation in Everest, I acclimatized in Kanchenjunga, summit the mountain, and come back to Everest. So the first time we went, I was able to go to Camp 4, no oxygen, I was fine, and slept in Camp 4 without oxygen, and then put on the oxygen for the summit push. The second time I went, my cough was really, really bad, and my ribs were hurting, and I was in so much pain. And we came to base camp, and we were supposed to start right away to Camp 2, but I felt like, okay, I'm not feeling very well. Let's just take a day in base camp to settle before we move. And then we start climbing from Camp 2 to Camp 2. We reached Camp 2. I fell asleep. Very bad cough throughout the night. Couldn't sleep. Woke up the next day. I slept like really late. Woke up the next day, and I reached Camp 3 so fast. I'm like, okay, my body is getting better. We rest in Camp 3 for 2 hours, and we move on. And as we keep on pushing, my guide asked me, can I look into your... So turn around, I need to look at your face. And I turn around, he goes, do you need oxygen? And by that time, we were close to Camp 4, but we weren't at Camp 4. We still needed a couple of hours, like two
We're talking
hours.
about Kanchenjunga, right?
Kanchenjunga. And I said, no oxygen until Camp 4. And he says, are you sure? No oxygen until Camp 4. And as I was climbing, I'm feeling pain. I'm feeling my ribs, I'm feeling my lungs, I'm feeling everything in pain. And then 30 minutes later, Asma, turn around, let me see your face. You need to go on oxygen. I'm like, no, I don't need to go on oxygen. I want to go to Camp 4. And in that situation, it was me mentally telling myself, no, you're strong, you're being weak. If it's telling you need oxygen, it means you're weak. And in that half an hour, I was having that conversation with myself, and I was like, why am I resisting and saying no? Like, because I couldn't make it to Camp 4. I made it the first time. Why can't I make it the second time? But I was really sick. And within the 20-30 minutes, I turned around and I said, oxygen, please. I need the oxygen now. And we were very, very close to Camp 4. But I had to cut it, because there's a time where you're just like, no, oxygen is really needed, or specific type of support is needed. And
does your mental state evaporate at times?
Yes, it does. You're, again, like I said, uncomfortable. You're in severe conditions. You're climbing very, sometimes like when we climbed Dhaulagiri, for example, we climbed in 60 kilometer, 70 kilometer wind. So you're in a state of fear, you're in a state of discomfort. And sometimes...
Dhaulagiri, difficult mountain?
प्रतिज्ञा मात्र हैन, पूरा पनि गर्दछौं हामी। जगदम्बा अल्ट्रा प्रिमियम ओपीसी सिमेन्ट, यही हो नेपालको अनुभवी ओपीसी सिमेन्ट।
I'll either make it or break it, but I'm definitely gonna shake it. A heart of a soldier, my dreams are colossal. I'm a leader, I need a footstep they can follow. Every mile I walk is a story worth telling. Stomp through the concrete, raise hell till it's heaven. I'm the man, I'm a beast, a monster. That's why I came, I saw, I conquered. Maneuver swiftly, I go with the flow. I got gold in my soul. I'm no average Joe, no time to waste. How long is a soon? Zip zap zoom, ready to touch the moon. Closer to greatness, I can feel it in my bones. I keep walking alone. Representing where you're from, Gold Star G10 for the fast life.
तँलाई म पैसा दिन्छु है।
आमा, के गर्नु भएको? बच्चालाई त्यसो गर्यो नि बिग्रिन्छ नि बच्चा।
अनि मलाई त्यो फुटबल सुटबल के थाहा? उ आफै जान्नेछ किनिहाल्छ भनेर दिएको।
के भयो त? आमाले आफ्नै नातिलाई गिफ्ट दिन नहुने?
गिफ्ट त दिनुहुन्छ नि तर पैसै हातमा दिनु भएन भने नि यार।
यस्तो गर्नुहोस् न त हजुरआमा, प्रभु पे एपबाट पैसा पठाइदिनु, म ड्याडीसँग सल्लाह गरेर अनलाइनबाट किनिहाल्छु नि, हुन्न ड्याडी?
हे
Smart
प्रभु, मलाई यो एप स्याप भन्ने के थाहा?
यो प्रभु पे चलाउन यति सजिलो छ कि आमाले पनि एकैछिनमा सिकिहाल्नुहुन्छ।
जय होस् प्रभु।
प्रभु पे वालेट अब मोबाइलमा।
Dhaulagiri, difficult mountain?
Very difficult mountain as well. Again, the conditions we climbed in, the weather reports showed a specific type of weather, and it turned around, and then it turned around again. So it was a lot longer than what it was supposed to be. And that's when you start to become tired. You want to take more rest.
How reliable or how accurate is the weather forecast these days?
So I'm not very accustomed to the way the weather reports that our guides look at, but I know that they look at several weather reports, put together, study them, and make a decision based on what they see and decide on that. This year we were very lucky with the Everest weather window because it was a very, very big, very beautiful weather. It wasn't like this for a very long time. But Mother Nature, things change.
How crowded was it this time?
So
Everest.
Everest was very crowded. I was lucky enough to be on the last. So I climbed Everest on the 27th and Lhotse on the 28th. We were the only people on the mountain, so it was not crowded at all. Mm-hmm. So we were coming down, and the ice doctors were removing the ladders as we were coming down the ice fall. But it was very, very crowded in the beginning, as I understood from a lot of team members. And it's nice to see that because... It's
so how many 8,000ers have you ticked in your bucket list for Nepal?
So far I've ticked 5 8,000ers. Mm-hmm. And I'm going off to continue to climb a couple more this year.
If I may ask, which are your
So favorite? I'm climbing K2 and Broad Peak this year in Pakistan as well. Mm-hmm.
And no more in Nepal this season?
No more in Nepal, but next year I'll be back.
Which was the first mountain before Kilimanjaro, if you ever climbed?
Kilimanjaro was actually the first.
Really?
Yeah.
There was no toy mountain you did before?
No, it was the first mountain. And Kilimanjaro is a beautiful mountain for people to start with. It's not very technical, so it's an easy climb. And it's a beautiful experience because it's completely different. So it's always a nice recommendation for it to be your first mountain. I went off to ski to the North Pole, 100 kilometers to the last degree of the North Pole. Mm-hmm. And then came back to Nepal. And that's when I decided I wanted to do Everest. So on my way to Everest Base Camp, I saw Everest, and I remember turning back to my cousin and our guides and telling them, I think I'm coming back again. That's what I want to do. And and then my life completely changed.
A very naive, a very laymanish question. Both the poles you've been there, right?
Yes.
Are they different?
Very different.
Really?
Yes. So the North Pole is shifting ice packs on the ocean. You sleep, you wake up, you have moved completely to a completely different place because you're on the ocean and the currents move the ice packs. Mm-hmm.
That's the North Pole, right?
That's the North Pole. The South Pole is, and the North Pole, of course, it's wetter because of the ocean. It's a completely different experience. The South Pole is like, again, a completely different experience, but the South Pole is a bit higher altitude. Mm-hmm. And as you go the last degree, you're going a little bit higher as you ski. But it's a completely type of flat. So the last degree is quite flat compared to the North Pole. And you wake up still in the same place. Mm-hmm. With the North Pole, you never feel like you're moving, but when you check your GPS, you've moved, just because you're on the ocean.
So now, what else in your bucket list?
So currently there's a lot of, back home I'm working on a lot of sports projects. Mm-hmm. And I love what I do. I love sports because it really shows you how people can transform physically, mentally, how their lives transform. So it has a very strong power. I've always loved sports since I was a child. And I'm still focused on my project called Beyond Boundaries. So actually climbing, completing the Explorers Grand Slam. And if
How many more to go to finish your?
So I've got two more mountains. So Denali in the U.S. and Karstens Pyramid in Indonesia. Hopefully, if I complete it this year, I'll be the first Arab female to actually complete the Explorers Grand Slam, and continuing to basically expand my knowledge and strength to be able to climb more 8,000-meter mountains.
After so much of indulgence with the mountains and expeditions and adventure sports, so to say, do you think you have generated interest in your part of the world about mountains of Nepal and mountains all around the world?
I think, yes, I was able to inspire a lot of other girls, and that was the main reason for me. For me, beyond boundaries and being able to break barriers and make people understand what mountaineering is about. A lot of people don't understand the time, the effort, the investment that you put to climb mountains. They think they don't compare it to other sports. When you come and say, I'm a football player, it's a completely different thing. Or when you say, I'm a basketball player, they understand that. But with mountaineering, it's a completely different analogy, completely different sport. And it takes time. Doha is sea level, so we do not have any mountains. When we're in base camp, and it's 100-degree difference, be it minus 30 to 30 degrees, like it's completely different. And when I first started, people didn't really understand what I was doing. Why?
Were there people who discouraged you?
Yes, of course. They would say, why are you doing this? Why are you putting yourself through situations that are not comfortable? You have a comfortable life. Why do you do this? Why do you put yourself in danger? Because you're saying you're putting yourself in danger just to prove a point. And I'm telling them I'm not proving a point, but it's something that I enjoy. And for me, once you take the right steps, the right team, the right approach, you're in a safe way, and everything else is left to nature, and it's not under your control. But there's a lot of girls that have contacted me locally and within the Arab world who have said, how did you do this? How are you able to convince your family? Or how are you able to do what you want to do? And there's a couple who have told me, we're going to go climb a mountain in the next couple of months, and now we're training for it. So it opened, adventure sports has now been a bit more exposed within the Middle East, I think. And a lot of people are discovering themselves through not just climbing, but also, I would say, hiking. This year, there was a lot of Arabs who climbed. So we have Saudi Arabia, UAE, someone from UAE, someone from Saudi Arabia, someone from Egypt, from Qatar, from Oman. So it was quite a nice number to see that there were some people from the Arab world actually climbing.
And this year, when we are talking now, it's a very, very big year for Qatar.
Yes.
You're hosting the FIFA World Cup.
Yes.
And I hear you took a FIFA ball up to the summit.
Yes.
Did you do that?
So yes, what I know that for me, as a young girl, my cousins were all boys, so we used to play football in the streets. And I remember my mom would tell me, did I bring a boy into this world? You're always running around barefoot playing football. And football was a passion since I was a kid. I went to high school and I became captain of the football team for quite a while. And it was such a pleasure to see. So once the ball was launched, I really wanted to be able to take it. And I knew there was, so I've climbed with a couple of my team members here, and I knew a lot of them were football fans as well. So when we took it up, we played football in base camp, took the ball up to the summit first before we started to play in Camp 4 in the
You did that?
So the Sherpas started to kick it around and take photos. So it was nice to see how an object like the football or a sport like football was able to bring people together and just make a little bit of fun. We just arrived from Everest summit and people started to play around and kick the ball around. So it was nice to have it.
And the outfit that you were wearing while you're summiting Everest,
yes,
we were told that it was designed by a Nepali?
Yes. So my summit suit was created by Everest Outfitters, which are a Nepali company here. I loved working with them because they created the suit for me when I climbed Manaslu and Dhaulagiri, and we adapted the suit to what I needed to climb. And I was very happy because I feel like when you climb mountains, when you work with specific countries, it's nice to work with the locals. I really appreciate it. I would love that when it happens in Doha, and the owners of the company are mountaineers and experts in mountaineering as well. So it's nice to have their input, and we work together to create that suit.
Shekha, it was a pleasure talking to you, and it was a pleasure knowing so many new things about the mountains and the endurance it requires. Before we wrap up, I would like to express our deepest congratulations to Qatar on hosting the forthcoming FIFA World Cup, and we wish you all the success. And on behalf of all the Nepalese, take back greetings for the Amir, the government, and the people of Qatar, and almost 500,000 Nepalese brothers and sisters who are working there. We'd just like you to enjoy Nepal, keep coming back, and we'd love to host you on and on and on again. We wish you all the very best.
Thank you very
Thank you very
much.
much.
Thank you.